All right. So this basically says that speech shows smooth rhythm and phrasing. There are no hesitations, repetitions, false starts, or non-native phonological simplifications. Okay. So basically, it is asking you some things to do, and it is asking you some things to avoid. Okay. Now, these are the don'ts of speaking that you have to, you can say, avoid in all your speaking tasks. Later on, we will discuss retail lecture. So these are to be avoided there and also in here in your repeat sentence. Write them down and I will explain to you. And just give me 1 minute. All right. So the things you have to avoid in here are pauses, fillers, repetitions, hesitation, and curses. Okay. Now, what are pauses? That should be clear. What will count as a pause? Yes. Okay. Like unnecessarily stopping, like stopping for no reason at all. That will be counted as an error. In repeat sentence, read a lecture, and in all the other speaking tasks as well. Okay. Also, no use of any fillers. Like when you're confused, when you're nervous, no insertions of any sort of sounds. That will be wrong. Okay. Repetitions, I believe, is self explanatory. That should make sense. Like, if you felt like you didn't say the word correctly or you mispronounced it and you thought about repeating it, that will be wrong. Okay. And hesitation. About hesitation, remember this thing that at times the tone or loudness of your voice can give away if you are hesitant or if you are a little bit nervous. All right. Now, it doesn't matter that much for repeat sentence. This thing matters more in the context of read aloud. But just make sure you speak loudly so your voice projects actually confidence. Okay. Just make sure you speak a bit loudly with a bit of energy in your voice. That should be sufficient. That should be fine. Okay. And the last point in here, it says no courtesies. So make sure you avoid the use of any sort of these words because it's all controlled by a computer. There is no physical examiner or anything over there. Remember. Okay. Now, anything in here that is confusing or you guys don't understand? It is clear? All right. Now, about the things you need to do or the things you need to be careful of in here. So the only thing in the, you can say, case of both repeat sentence and the next topic we are gonna discuss that you have to be careful of is something known as intonation. Okay. Now intonation, this actually graph should give you a bit of an idea what it is. Can anyone tell me? And I think a couple of you did take the lecture last week for read aloud class as well. Those guys should remember. I think you were there for read aloud lecture. What was intonation? No, not the pitch. Pitch is something else. Over there as well, you said pitch, and then I explained it in quite detail. Okay, if you have a look at the graph, it is going high at some places, low at some places. What does it mean? Okay, sorry? Yes, more or less you can say. So basically, intonation means change in tone. Okay, so if you are listening to a computer or a robotic recording, what is the difference between that and a human speaker? That you can say computer recording would be having one tone or having one loudness throughout. All right, like let's just say if I'm saying one sentence, repeat sentence is a very important topic. Okay, the computer recording might be as monotonous as repeat sentence is a very important topic. But if it's a human speaker, he will say repeat sentence is a very important topic. What was the difference now? There were certain highs and lows in the loudness of the voice. Okay. Now, in the case of retell lecture and repeat sentence, there is just one thing you need to be careful of to take care of intonation, and that is to do something known as phrasing properly. Firstly, write this down, then I will explain it to you what I'm trying to say. Okay, tell me the difference between words and phrases. Like what will count as a word and what will count as a phrase? Anyone? Okay. Mhm. Yes, good. Read aloud, retell lecture, or any combination of words. Okay. So word is like one thing. Like let's just say if I take just this one, it is one word, intonation. Okay. What's a phrase? You can write it down. Phrase is any two or more than two words together that makes sense basically with each other. Like let's just say if I take a retell lecture, it has two words and both of them are making sense together. Okay. Similarly, the topic we are discussing right now, repeat sentence, its name is also a phrase. Yes. Okay. Similarly, the one we discussed earlier, right from dictation, also a phrase. Okay. Now, what do I mean by phrasing is that you say all the words of a phrase together in one tone, in basically one go without any pause between them. Now, what do I mean by that? What is the name of the topic we are discussing? Repeat sentence. Okay. Now, we are not saying it as repeat sentence. We are saying it together in one flow. Repeat sentence. This is what phrasing means. Okay, as long as you do just this thing properly in your repeat sentence and retell lecture, the other thing about intonation you don't need to worry about here for retell lecture and repeat sentence. That should be okay. There are some other points for read aloud, but those will be discussed in the class for read aloud. You don't need to worry about them anymore. Okay, so what you need to do carefully, phrasing basically. Like whenever there is any phrase, make sure you say the words of a phrase together in one tone, in one flow basically. All right, is it making sense what I'm saying or not making sense at all? Making sense? No, will you remember this or not? Remember this? All right, good. Okay. Now, just a little bit about pronunciation. So, for pronunciation, it says that if you read it, all vowels and consonants. Now, can anyone tell me what are vowels? Yes. Okay. A, E, I, O, U. And all the other alphabets then are consonants. Okay. Like A, E, I, O, U are vowels, and all the other ones you basically call as consonants. Okay. Now, this says that both of these are produced in a manner that is easily understood by regular speakers of the language. The speaker uses assimilation and deletions appropriate to continuous speech. Stress is placed correctly in all words, and sentence level stress is fully appropriate. Okay. Now, what it is basically trying to tell you is what is the base unit of pronunciation or what is pronunciation based on for any word. Okay. And that is something known as syllables. Okay. Now, what is that exactly? Let's just say if we take this word, inferno, the syllables inside this word will be in, for, and no. If you have a look at any one of them, you will see it has the sound of I, which is a vowel sound, and the sound of N, which is consonant sound. This is what you will call as syllable. All right. Now, don't worry way too much about this. It doesn't necessarily mean that for all the words you have to identify the syllables and say them properly. It doesn't mean that. Okay. This is just to basically tell you what computer uses to check for your pronunciation. Now, what do you do to make sure you get a good mark? Make sure you say your words clearly and loudly. Or another way of putting this would be that you stress on the sounds of different words properly. So computer can capture them. Okay. But don't overstress, as that may lead to it being detected as 2 or 3 different words. Okay. So stressing would be, let's just say if I'm saying a sentence as repeat sentence is a very important topic. This is like you can say proper level stress. Okay. But if you're saying as repeat sentence is a very important topic, that's overstress. Don't do that. Okay. Just make sure you're saying it clearly and loudly enough, but not like you're spending 2 seconds on one word. It shouldn't be like that. Okay. All right, guys. Now that is pretty much the things you need to know about your speaking. Now we will discuss about content and also the main thing. We will discuss the techniques you will use to capture your content for repeat sentence and for writing it. Okay. But before that, any questions in here? All good? Okay. All right. Let's go back to repeat sentence. Okay. Now have a look at this one. This is how you are marked for your content in your listening. Write this down first and then I will discuss it. All right. So your marks for content in here are actually based on how many words you can capture from your audio. If you capture all of them, you'll get 3 out of 3 marks. Okay. If you capture 50% or more than 50, so 50 basically meaning like half of the sentence or more than half, then you will get 2 out of 3 marks. And if you remember less than half, then you will be getting 1 mark. Okay. Now let me actually tell you one very important point in here. Do pay attention to this and write this down as well. All right, write it down first. It should make sense what I'm trying to say, but I'll explain it anyways. No, no, it's not 157. It means basically greater than 50. How it can be 157? All right. So in here, remember this thing that in your exam, you will have 5 to 6 sentences that are a bit shorter. And shorter will be in the range of 8 to 12 words, basically. So I will explain you the techniques just in a minute. Whatever technique you decide to use, make sure you are perfectly comfortable with at least an 8 to 12 word sentence. That's very important. Okay, because if you're targeting, let's just say 79 each, it's very important to get full marks for at least your 5 or 6 sentences. Okay, then for the other 3 to 4 sentences, when you have 12 to 14 words, even if you capture, let's just say anywhere between 8 and 12 from these sentences, you will be falling within this criteria, 2 out of 3. And the same for a bit longer as well, you will be falling more or less in this criteria, 2 out of 3 marks. And that is more than sufficient to give you a very good mark that you would need if, let's just say, you are targeting 79 each. Okay, is that making sense what I'm trying to explain here? All right, so with an 8 to 12 word sentence, you should always be very comfortable. Okay, and trust me, with practice it is easily possible. Okay. Now with longer sentences, like if it has like 18 words, 19 words, I do agree with you. It is quite hard to capture the whole thing perfectly 100%. But trust me, an 8 to 12 word sentence is easily possible if you practice good enough. Okay. Now let's discuss the techniques now that I will touch over here. Now, read a lecture you will also get where in your speaking and writing section. Okay, this is your fourth topic in here. It gives you marks where towards your listening and towards your speaking. Okay, and you can have three or you can have four questions for reader language. Okay, now if we talk about its weightage towards listening, that will be around 20%. So you can say quite important. All the three topics we are discussing today are the most important ones for your listening. Okay. And if I go toward its weightage for speaking, that would be more or less around 22%. All right. Now, let's see what this topic is all about. Have a look at this one. You guys firstly read the statement and then I will explain it. So, what is it saying basically? You will hear a lecture, as in, you are, of course, going to be listening to an audio over here. Okay. Then it says that after listening to the lecture, in 10 seconds, please speak into the microphone and retell what you just heard in your own words. You will have 40 seconds to give your response. Okay. So basically, what it is telling you is that you are gonna be listening to an audio. Now, in this case, the audios will be a bit longer. Okay. Like if you have a look at this slide, now they can range from 30 to 90 seconds. Like, going from half a minute to 1.5 minutes. Okay. And after the audio, it will give you just 10 seconds time to prepare. Just 10 seconds, not more than that. And then you will have an answering time of 40 seconds in which you can say you will be retelling or you will be summarizing the information of your audio. Okay, by of course recording your answer. All right, and have a look at these 3 points that I wrote for this task now. For retell lecture, how many seconds I speak out of like 40 seconds time, that does matter for my score. Okay, ideally I would say it should be 30 to 35 seconds, but at least 25, and the maximum you're gonna speak should be no more than 38 seconds time. Okay, now go through these points, write them down if you haven't, and please do ask if any questions. Okay, guys. So, any questions in here? All right. So, remember that now, of course, again, we have an audio that we are listening, but the audios are longer now. Okay. It's a 30 to 90-second audio, and it will have quite a, you can say, lot of information in there. I have to note down the information from the audio, and that I will like show you in a minute what sort of information is important and what are the techniques we will use to write down that information. Okay, and then what we are doing is basically we are retelling or we are summarizing the information of our audio. All right, and I have to make sure if I want to get a good mark, I speak for like around 30 to 35 seconds out of the 40 seconds time. Okay, and that 30 to 35 seconds time, if you have a look over here at the recording bar, that would be, you can say, more or less in this range, like more than 3 by 4th of my recording. That's it. Okay, now let's move along. So these are the types of written lecture you can have in the exam. If you have a look over here, you can just have an audio written lecture, or at times you can have a picture or a slide written lecture as well. But a picture or a slide written lecture will have an audio. Don't worry about that. Okay, it will look actually something like this. Like on the left side, you will have the picture or maybe the slide over there, and of course the audio and your audio bar and recording bar, they will be here. Okay, and you can also have a video reader lecture as well. Now with video reader lecture, it might be that a person is giving interview to someone, or it might be that a person is standing and delivering a lecture on some topic. Okay, but a good thing is you won't have any important information in the video. You don't need to worry about the video. You pay your complete attention, you focus 100% on your audio. Okay, your important information will only be there. All right, now let's move along. Okay, these points I have already explained you in detail, like your fluency, pronunciation, and content. Okay, now fluency and pronunciation, just as I explained you in the repeat sentence, they apply exactly in the same way over here. So the things that I discussed, like your pauses, fillers, repetitions, hesitation, courtesies, you have to avoid them here as well. That's very important. Okay, and about the content, that I will explain you now, that how will we capture information from our audio and how basically we will structure our answers, because you do have to remember we just have 10 seconds to prepare, which is quite a short time. Okay, so let's see what we can do. All right, now before I actually start with the techniques, tell me one thing. Let's just say if I have a 90-second audio. So 90-second, that will be basically 1 minute and 30 seconds, right? Do you think everything I hear in this duration will be important and I should try to capture and insert it in my answer? Or do you think there will be some specific points that will be more important than other ones? What do you think? Anyone? I have a 90-second audio, and remember in the retail lecture, you are trying to summarize your audio more or less. But the difference is you're speaking your summary basically. Okay. When I'm summarizing my audio, should I include everything, all the points, whatever I can find, or some specific things? specific things. Okay, so the techniques that I'm showing you now, they will help you capture those specific things. All right, now pay attention in here. Have a look at this technique. So this is basically, in this slide, I'm telling you that some time frames of your audio are more important than other ones. All right. Particularly, you can say your very first 10 seconds and your last 10 to 15 seconds. Always very important. So you will try to capture as many words and phrases as possible from these time frames. Okay. And first 10 seconds, I believe you would make sense that whenever the audio start, so of course the 10 seconds that you get over there. Last 10 to 15 seconds, you can say depending on your length of your audio, might be more or less at this point. So try to capture as much information as possible from that. Okay. Now, the next technique, quite simple, that I believe should be self-explanatory. Capture words and phrases that are being repeated. Like, any words or phrases that are said more than once in your audio, capture them right away. Okay. Now remember this, in both the slides, if you see, I'm asking you to capture words and phrases, not sentences. Okay, do remember that. Capturing sentences is quite difficult and not required as well. You don't have to do that. You just try to capture words and phrases. Okay, let's have a look at the next technique. Read this one first, then I will explain. Okay, now what does this technique says? Identify the information around words like what, why, when, where, how, and also around these linking words. Now, what does it mean actually? Firstly, tell me, where do we use these words? No, no. The second ones are linking. What, why, when, where, how. What are these? Where do we use these words? When you want to ask different questions. That's it. Okay. Like what time it is, what are you doing over here, why are you going over there, and all, like, different types of questions. Okay. Now, let's just say I got this question in my reader lecture audio. What do you think I should pick from here? Yes. Okay. We will actually pick future of migration, and we will also pick Australia. Okay. So basically these ones. All right. So you can say the main words, the main phrases of your question. All right. And also, question will be followed by an answer. We will try to pick main words and phrases from our answers as well. Okay. Now, moving along to the next thing. These are your linking words basically. Okay. Now they can be used to add more information, contrast information, or at times to give conclusion as well. Okay. Now have a look at this sentence and tell me, what do you think I should capture from this one? Any idea?
COVID-19, Australian economy.
Okay, and
next to T.
excellent. Okay, so basically, more or less these words and phrases, and this one as well actually. Next 2 to 3 years. Okay, so the technique here is basically that whenever you come across words like, let me go back. Yeah, whenever you come across any of these words like what, why, when, where, how, or any of these linking words, you pay more attention to the sentence. Okay, and you don't have to capture the whole sentence, but the main word, the main phrase that was containing basically the main piece of information. Yeah, you capture that one. Okay, is it making sense what I'm trying to say? All right. Okay, the next technique, this one says that change in tone or stress on certain words or phrases. Does it make sense what I'm trying to say in here? More or less the thing we talked about in intonation. Does it make sense or not? Okay. What basically it is saying is that in your audio, if you notice that the speaker is emphasizing on any word or phrase, or when he was about to say any particular word or phrase, all of a sudden he changed the loudness of his voice, like he started to speak a bit louder, that will be your cue that that one word or one phrase is very important. Okay, now let me say this sentence. Let's just say if I say this one as scoring well in summarized spoken text is crucial for scoring 79 plus in listening. Okay, now if you paid attention to the way I said it, these words that I highlighted, you will actually capture them right away. All right, so basically when you notice that speaker is putting more stress on or maybe speaking loudly on some words or phrases, you capture them right away. All right, is it making sense or not? All right, and also one last technique in here, that if you can capture longer words, like the words that have more number of characters, do try to capture them, because the way it usually works is, if you have a look over here, the longer words are domestication, evolutionary, political, and development, and they contain more information than is, and, rather than, and a. And this is true for a lot of words. Okay, yeah. This one. All right, so these are all your techniques that will basically help you to capture good words and phrases from your written language. Okay, now remember this, I will say this again, you will capture words and phrases, not sentences. Don't try to capture sentences. Okay, all right. So you took the notes, you captured the words and phrases. Now the next thing is basically structuring your answer, because of course you have to speak, you have to record your answer. Now, for structuring your answer in a better way, you can use a simple structure like this one. Now, firstly, write it down or take a picture of it, and then I will explain you. Okay, spend like a couple of minutes on this, go through all the sentences, and then I will explain you what I'm trying to say in here. Okay, guys, done. All right. So, okay. Now, hear me first and understand how you have to use this. Then you can write it down later. Now, what we are basically doing in here is we are taking words and phrases from our audio, as I explained you earlier, and we are just gonna insert that in different sentences in here. Okay. And we will basically make it sound like a sentence over here. Now, what do I mean by that? Let's just say the four words or the four phrases I captured from my audio were carbon dioxide, carbon monoxide, poisonous gases, and effects of temperature. Okay, these were my four phrases. Now I will say it as the lecture was about effects of temperature, carbon dioxide, carbon monoxide, and poisonous gases. Moreover, the speaker talks about and then so along and so forth. Okay, so we have words and phrases. We will, of course, say them as words and phrases. Okay, but we won't take pauses in between the phrases. We have to make it sound like a sentence for the computer to make sure we get maximum marks for our speaking as well. Is it making sense what I'm trying to say or not? Okay, let's do one question here. Okay, you guys take notes for that as well. I will show you the sample answer for it, and I will do that one in front of you to explain you this concept in more detail. Okay.